So by now, most of you have probably seen the $20 Temu Pico Peninsula Reef tank thing that is taking the hobby by storm. Now, I wasn't actually able to get one, so I had to borrow this from a friend for the purpose of this video, but I have to give it back. Sad. This little tank has become an instant favorite by reefers everywhere, so much so that you literally bought them all. But there's a problem. With that little tank being the size that it is, the stock list, the animals that you can put in that tank have to be chosen carefully. And in this video, I'm going to give you plenty of options to put inside your $20 Temu Pico tank. Let's go. We're going to start off with the fishes that you can choose, and the first one is the high fin red-banded goby. This tiny, very peaceful little fish likes to hide a lot, but readily accepts frozen foods, so that's an awesome addition. The next one is a Yasha goby, which has beautiful coloration, and normally this fish likes to be paired with a pistol shrimp, but I would skip the pistol shrimp in this size of tank. Now, I have one down here in my 22-gallon sea cardinal, and it's rearranged the entire sand bed in this 22-gallon tank. So in something like this one, which is about 3 gallons, it's just really not going to be a good choice, so I wouldn't go that route. It's going to make a sand pile and potentially cause problems with the flow and filtration in the tank, pushing the sand into the back and causing issues. Next up on the list is an active swimmer, the little shark nose goby. These guys have a great personality, and it's even been reported by several reef keepers that these will eat vermitid snails. So if you end up with those red curlicue vermitid snails in your little tank, these can help control that population. Another very similar fish to that is the yellow line goby, and all of these fish have a very small bioload, but you still only want to stick to having just one, at the most maybe 2 of these in this tank. And you're going to need a good lid because they are all jumpers. One of my favorite fish for this type of thing is a great little pico fish. It is a tiger goby. These guys like to perch a lot. They don't really swim all that much, and they are an attractive looking fish, so I think they're a perfect fit for this tank. And finally, to round out the fishes, we have the neon goby. This is a small, excellent cleaner fish. They constantly move around and pick at the rocks. They do swim quite a bit, but not so much that this is going to be a problem. Just keep your rockscape minimal in the little tank, and this fish is going to be super interesting to watch swim around and clean up your tank. Next up, we're going to move into some shrimp options that you can keep here. And the first one is going to be the sexy anemone shrimp. These guys don't get much bigger than about 1/4 of an inch, maybe 1 inch at the most, so they are perfectly sized for this type of aquarium. They love to be paired with a rock flower anemone, and we're going to talk about anemones in just a few minutes, so make sure you stick around for that. But these guys absolutely love to be paired up with a nem. They will stay right on that thing and help feed it and grab some food particles as they come by. Another great anemone shrimp for this tank would be the Pedersen's anemone shrimp. This is another gorgeous, absolutely peaceful shrimp. This also works well with rock flower anemones, and it's going to be really nice to watch this guy just hang out in the nem in this small tank. A really cool, super tiny little micro predator are the bumblebee shrimps. Now, you could keep a couple, maybe 3 or 4 of these in this tank without a problem, and they're going to be super awesome to watch these guys cruise around the tank and take care of the things that you don't want in there. These ones would really appreciate additional feedings with little meaty, chopped up pieces of morsels of food, mysis and brine shrimp and some clams and scallops and things like that. But the portions need to be really, really tiny. So make sure you chop them up really well before you introduce them to the tank. Another really awesome showpiece shrimp that I would consider for this tank with the right rock structure, you're going to want to make a cave or something for this guy to kind of hole up in, is the blood red fire shrimp. Now, a lot of people might disagree with me about this shrimp being suitable for this size of a tank, but if it is the main guy that you keep in the tank, he's going to do fine. They don't really move around bigger tanks that much. I have one in my 180 back here, but he doesn't move out of about a 6-inch area in that tank. That is his zone. That's where he stays. And that's the type of, mindset that you want for an animal in a tank like this. You don't want them to move around all that much. So I actually think that the blood red fire shrimp is a solid choice. Not to mention they look freaking cool, right? One last shrimp that I would recommend for this, and I would keep one or possibly only two in here, are the harlequin shrimps. These are absolutely gorgeous. These would be my favorite choice if I was going to set one of these tanks up, but I already have some in my wine glass tank, so there's no reason for me to do that. But these shrimp only eat live starfish legs. So you have to be ready and willing to keep chocolate chip starfish on hand, and every week or every 5 days or so, literally chop a leg off of that starfish so that you can feed your shrimp. If you're not okay with that, if that is not your thing, then these shrimp are not for you. They cannot survive on any other food source but live starfish. Oh, and by the way, if you're new here and you don't know who I am, my name is Logan, and I run Reef Rookies, the most respectful reef keeping community on all of the internet. So I would appreciate it if you would subscribe here and join us over on our Facebook group, Reef Rookies with Logan. Oh, and before I forget, thank you so much to the new YouTube channel members. You guys are literally keeping me able to do this full time with your contributions monthly to the channel. If anybody wants to join and become a YouTube member, I have 5 tiers from $1 to $100, and every little bit helps, even the $1 tiers. Thank you so much for that. Let's get back to the video. Now, everything that I've mentioned so far in this video are carnivores. They are predators. They will eat meat if it is provided to them. So you need to be very careful when you're feeding this small tank that you feed it very lightly. Literally spot feed the animals that you have in the tank. You don't want to broadcast feed in this tank and just let food go everywhere. This is not a large volume of water, and it's going to get nasty really quick if you do that. So spot feed your animals in everything that we talk about today. No tank is going to be good without a solid cleanup crew. So here are some options. For the sand bed, I like Nacerius vibex. These guys don't get very big. Their shell stays about a 1/2 inch or maybe smaller. You can have upwards of a dozen of these little dudes in this tank, but remember what I said about feeding the tank. These snails are going to clean up leftover fish food and stuff like that makes its way down to the sand bed. So if you're going to keep these snails to keep that sand turned up, and I would recommend that you do, you're going to want to spot feed them once a week with a little chunk of a shrimp or a little piece of a silver-side minnow. Just put it down in the tank and turn the flow off. They will come out of the sand, which is why they're called zombie snails. Pretty cool. They will come out of the sand, find that piece of food, and they will munch that thing down until it's absolutely gone, and then they'll disappear back into the sand. The ox-tongue neorite is going to be next, and this is an excellent snail for keeping your rocks clean. They are voracious algae eaters, and they will absolutely climb all over your rocks, and sometimes they will get on the glass, but they prefer to stay on the rocks and keep those rocks clean. And for keeping the glass and the rest of the tank clean, I would recommend a couple of Margaritas turbo snails. These guys are going to move all over the whole tank, over the glass and the rocks, anything plastic. They're going to hit everything, and they're going to keep everything looking good for you. Micro brittle starfish would be an excellent option if you can actually find some. Put them in the tank. They're going to bury themselves in little holes in the rocks, and you're just going to see their little legs poked out of the rock, waving in the breeze. These guys do need a little bit of broadcast feeding, so be very careful with that. Once a week, maybe chop some mysis or brine up really, really tiny, broadcast feed it into the tank, and let that circulate for about 15 or 20 minutes before you do your water change, and you'll be good to go. A super awesome crab that I would recommend would be a pom-pom crab. These don't get much bigger than about an inch from tip to tip, and they keep 2 anemones in each one of their pincers, and they use those anemones to ward off predators and also to feel around and collect bits of food. It's a really interesting symbiotic relationship that they have. have, and it's an awesome addition to a tank like this. Another cool crab would be a porcelain crab. They have a fan-like appendage that they can fluff out into the flow and grab things that are flowing by. Now, these crabs, because of the way that they feed, do need that broadcast feeding as well, so follow the same rules that I mentioned just a few minutes ago. And finally, another invert that would be awesome for this tank are feather dusters. You could put several feather dusters in this tank. They usually come in like browns and reddish colorations. There's a couple of other colors, but they're kind of hard to get. Pink with white tips. Cocoa worms also would be a good choice for this tank, and they would all look very great and be very happy in this type of aquarium. Now, we need to be selective here about our coral options that we're going to put in the tank. We need to stay away from anything that is an aggressive coral or is going to have sweeper tentacles and sting other things near it. Real estate in this tank is at a premium. Checking my notes, so stay away from things like torches, hammers, frog spawns, galaxias, phobias, anything like that that's going to have those sweeper tentacles that can come out and sting nearby stuff. So some soft corals we can keep. We're looking at zoanthids, firework clove polyps, mushrooms, rickordias, eumas, and things like this. Stuff that doesn't move around the tank very much or at all and pretty much stays in one spot. Most of these don't grow crazy fast. They are going to grow, but just not ridiculously fast, and they're going to look really good in your tank. There's a ton of different colorations to choose from, and having just one of these in the tank, if you did just a Discosoma mushroom tank, it would look absolutely amazing, especially if you put a couple of different colorations of mushrooms in there. Something like this King Kong mushroom that I have would be an awesome addition, as well as just doing an entire zoa garden in the tank. Just a bunch of different kinds of zoas. It would look awesome. There aren't very many LPS corals that I would recommend for this type of setup, but there are three that I think would probably be okay. Micromusa lordhowensis, which most people call acans. Blastomusa would be good, and so would Duncan corals. Candy cane corals also would be okay because they grow relatively slow, but they usually grow and get quite long pretty quickly over the next, several months after you have them. And in a year in or so, they're going to really be taking over one whole section of the tank. So I would probably not add those, but you could if you wanted to. The other three, the Micromusas, the Blastomusas, and Duncans, they pretty much stay in one ball. They don't really grow outwards all that much. All the heads and polyps are going to be really closely tight packed together, so they're a good option for this tank. Believe it or not, I'm actually going to make some SPS recommendations as well, but these are the very easy to keep SPS, and as long as you continually doing your water changes and have detectable nitrates and phosphates, these are going to be okay, and they're probably going to grow pretty well for you, which is going to surprise a lot of people. Monopora digitata is a really nice one. You can find lots of different colorations of this one, and it's going to look great under that blue lighting. They grow pretty quick, so you may end up finding that you have to frag this thing after 8 or 10 months to keep it contained within the tank. Seriatopora, or otherwise known as the bird's nest coral, is going to be a great option for this. These grow pretty quickly as well. They're really easy to get. They don't cost that much, and they're going to grow well in this type of environment. Stylopora is another one that's going to do great, and so will Pusillipora. This one, though, grows pretty fast in most cases, so just keep an eye on it and keep it trimmed back whenever you need to. But frags are cool, right? More frags for the other tanks. Now, earlier in the video, I said we would talk about anemones, and it's time to do so. Rock flower anemones are a great choice for this. They like to touch each other. They're perfectly fine with it. You could literally just pack the rocks out in this tank with RFAs, and they're going to do great and look awesome and be just fine. They generally don't move around the tank all that much, and as long as you don't overfeed them, they're not going to get absolutely huge. Now, they can get pretty big, but that requires a lot of feeding for that to happen. So just feed them every now and then, and you're going to be okay. Another good choice is a maxi mini carpet anemone, but I would not recommend keeping that along with any of those fish that I mentioned early in the video because it's probably going to eat them. But keeping a couple of those maxi mini carpet nems on opposite sides of the rocks away from each other, along with some of those sexy shrimp, It's going to be a really cool little setup. Those are just about the only two anemone that I would recommend for this tank. You're not going to want to put anything like bubble tips, long tentacles, condylactus, or any other sort of macro anemone in here. They're just going to outgrow the tank way too fast, and then you're going to have to move them into another tank, and it's just not a fun time. So avoid the other ones and stick to those two that I mentioned. So here are the general rules for keeping a Pico tank happy. I would highly recommend some form of automatic top off. This thing is going to use about a cup or two of water a day, depending on the humidity and the environment that you're in. But there's not a lot of room in the return section right here where the pump goes. You're only going to be able to drop about maybe 2 cups of water in this thing before it starts to blow bubbles everywhere. So a good ATO is highly recommended, even if it's one of those gravity type ones. I would definitely stick to one fish in this system. Whichever one of those you decide to go with, just go with one. You don't want to overload this thing and try to run any sort of a high bio load in it. Bad things are going to happen fast, and none of them are going to be good. So stick to one fish or just a couple of those shrimps, or if it's the fire shrimp, just one. Water changes are going to be based on your nutrients, but I suspect that you're going to be able to do anywhere from a 10% upwards of a 50% water change once a week on this tank to keep the nitrates and phosphates in check. But it's going to be completely dependent on how much you feed the tank. Those things are a result of what we add into the water by the way of usually fish food, but also additives and amino acids and all these things. Anything biological that we put into the tank is going to eventually break down into nitrates and phosphates. So limit how much you put in, and it will limit how much of those things are made. Now, I need you to jump down into the comments and let me know what you plan to do with your $20 Temu tank, and I'm going to sit here and be very jealous. Watch that video next. I think you're going to find that pretty interesting.